and thrilled as always to be the host of tonight's Millionaire Mentorship call. So first things first, let's get an idea of what we're going to cover tonight. So I'm going to give a lot of credit to one of my great new business partners and mentors, Dr. Sachin Patel out of Toronto, Canada. He's actually been incredibly expansive to both my business and my mind as he talks through, as I've never heard it talked before, about how nature is such a great teacher and how the model of nature supports network marketing and cooperativity and expansion. And so this call is very much credit to him. And I know he's watching, so hopefully he'll receive that, and I know he'll pay it forward and maybe even pick up a pearl or two. But we're going to start with a few announcements. Then we're going to talk about the intelligent design of the entire universe, the interconnectedness and cooperation which this business model works with so well. We'll talk about adaptability. If you don't adapt, you're not going to survive in network marketing or in life or in nature. Environment is a massive part of success. So little takeaway there, every other organism adapts to their environment, but guess what? Humans, we have a unique ability to adapt the environment to us, to create the environment. There are seasons and cycles of life. There's certainly going to be the power of flow. And I'll quote Dr. Sachin now, consistency carves canyons. So think about the Grand Canyon. I'll show you a beautiful picture and we'll talk about consistency and the power in this business. We're going to talk about abundance. So nature has abundance of supply, and of course we want abundant results, because if you don't have results, you've kind of wasted the abundance that we've been given. And then finally, what's built to last in terms of nature, and then what's built to last in our business model. So UTX is coming up February 22 through 24. It's absolutely critical, literally, for everybody to be there. So I like this picture of momentum. And it really describes the events and the purpose of events and power of events. But literally, they say if your business is not very good, if it's kind of stalled, you need the event. But if your business is smoking and great and moving, then literally the event needs you. So, we have a mix of that on our team. One, our team has record growth. Super happy to say that. Finished a record year. Super happy to say that. And we've applied these principles of nature, but what keeps us going is we keep bringing in new blood, new ideas, new energy, new stories. And remember they say a fire burns upward. Well, we've got stories coming from depth, whether we're talking about, South Africa, which has been absolutely massive. A couple of leaders on the ground there, Rose Khan and Zaf Khan. And Christina Springer, a Ruby, they're doing absolutely well. And I know Organo is working on that well to a very high level and committing a lot of resources to the success. And then our own leaders from the UK, especially that launched that, Pete Cohen, Steve Goulia, Dan Jukes. And sometimes I hesitate to mention names because I may have actually missed somebody within that conversation. But there's business leaders that'll be here from all over the world. If you look at Mexico, they created a worldwide momentum. Latin America, if you look at Europe, if you look at Thailand, if you look at Italy, if you look at Nigeria, we've got so many great leaders all over the world, and then certainly within our own backyard. And so many of these greats will be there, and you can catch some momentum from them. There's a leadership training on Friday, and that's actually going to be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And let me guarantee you that Mr. Bugs is going to bring it as he always does. And if you're there, if you're paying attention, if you're tuned in, tapped on, and receptive to the mode, you know what? You're going to get some information that's going to take your business to the new level. Now, you need to be a Platinum Elite, and that's not in a lifetime, but requalified since December or January or February. And you can certainly be above Platinum Elite. Sponsor 2 with any pack since December 1. And then you have to stay at within the OG room block at the Palms. Now, I've had a few people that don't really understand or seminars, which I've been a part of for 30 plus years in my professional career. how much the company, Organo, puts into an event. And they don't make money on the event. They lose money on the event, or let's just put it that way. The event is an investment. But to create the best price for all of us, they commit to a room block. And I have seen a lot of people want to go elsewhere. I'm going to tell you, the action is at the Palms. And if you want to get to the leadership training, you need to be there as well. They also are going to have a lifestyle lounge for anyone who qualifies for the leadership training. And they're going to get some professional facials. Yeah, the new BU line is going to be there. There's certainly going to be samples and, of course, tasting of our own gourmet products. And this is actually available to everybody, a skincare workshop by beauty experts featuring the new skincare line. That's going to be Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So you are going to want to get there early. I know there's probably some people that didn't qualify for the leadership training. My guess is they'll be in line really, really early. But I also know that Organo is going to give, of course, the leaders, the people that qualify, they're not going to penalize them for having been in leadership training. I'm sure they'll get some value on that. But let's now get to the core of what we're doing in terms of the topic. So sometimes people will ask, well, who in the world is the best mentor today? Or maybe the best mentor of all time? So the mentor that I want to tap into the wisdom of today has unmatched brilliance, unmatched wealth, unmatched beauty, unmatched power, unmatched longevity, unmatched team building, unmatched contribution. And by the way, this incredible mentor just happens to be a woman who is 3.8 billion years old. We're actually going to call her Mother Nature. And so I'm going to move into a quote from Albert Einstein, who was a pretty great, smart character. He basically said, you know what? Nature's really a good teacher. And if you look deeply, deeply into nature, you will actually understand everything better. And I will again say that me looking into nature this go-round has absolutely deepened my understanding of life, of networking, of synergy, how to share, how to build, how to contribute. And go to Frank Lloyd Wright. He says this: study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will absolutely never fail you. Another quote that I really like here: nothing in nature lives for itself. Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruit. The sun doesn't give heat for itself. Flowers don't spread fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. So we're going to get to that first rule, which is connectivity. So a lot of my mentors in the field or the world of natural medicine, holistic medicine, like to use a metaphor of a spider's web. Everything is so interconnected in human physiology, in human biochemistry, in humanity, and planet Earth by itself. So we're going to look at this connectivity and how it matters to our business. And by the way, one of the great advances in our society right now, one of the forces that's moving us forward is intelligence. And so there's a book called On Intelligence, and it really talks about pattern recognition. And in just a few moments, we're going to talk about the patterns of nature. And I like this quote. It says, a year spent in artificial intelligence is enough to make one believe in God, because you're going to see patterns everywhere. And I'm not intending to offend anybody with that language. I certainly hope no one is. You don't have to believe in God. I'm going to agree with this man. If he actually studied nature, it'd be maybe impossible to not believe in God. But that's a different conversation. So this gentleman, Isaiah Berlin, says this: to understand is to perceive patterns. And we see a picture of the universe. We see a picture of the brain cell. We see a map of the internet. And we can see some similarities. And I'm going to bring some other things into that pattern as well. So this is a massive picture of the dark matter of the universe. And you're actually going to see that that looks very similar to this picture, a little different color scheme, which is actually the largest map of brain connections to date. You can Google that, but there's more connections within your brain, within my brain, within all the brains in every being, more connections in that brain than there are leaves in the Amazon forest. I want you to think about that, if you can even begin to comprehend that magnitude. This is a 3D map of the universe, and you can see, again, all of these incredible connections. This is actually a 3D map of the World Wide Web. So the connectivity now via the internet, connecting everybody, is just like the universe and the brain functions. And this is something you may want to look up called the Wood Wide Web. And I believe that term was coined by a gentleman named Paul Stamets. But however you may see on your screen, believe it or not, it's actually mushrooms, the mycelium of mushrooms that are actually the internet of the earth. So take a look at how the mushrooms literally connect absolutely everything on planet Earth. And I'll turn down our size a little bit because I zoomed in a notch. But now I want you to look at this for a moment. Look at all of these structures, and then this is actually our business model. Very, very similar, which has a simple twist on that model, where it might even be considered stronger than nature. So when I share the business plan with people, I let them know that, you know what, guess what? You buy your own coffee business, which is worldwide. So far, you know, Organo's in over 35 countries. You buy into that business for $50 essentially, and you're going to renew that every year. So does that $50 get you? It gets you a world-class website, which gets better every single day. It gets you all their research and development, all of their products, their new skincare line, access to customer service, all those beautiful things for $50. Try to replicate that. It just can't be done on that scale for that much. Now, here's the magic of that. When you start buying into that business, now you can start signing up other people who all can create essentially an infinite network. Now, most people on this will probably know that you can actually accelerate your earnings with their accelerator packs, bronze, silver, or gold. And recall, if you sign somebody up, bronze, silver, or gold, or two people since December 1 and are Platinum Elite Plus and are staying at the host hotel in a room block, now you qualify for leadership training. But what I really like about this business model is you are at the top of your own organization. I heard a story one time where, you know, someone walked into a company and they said, you know, I'd like an application. And they said, well, what application would you like? And they said, well, I actually want to run this whole place. And they said, yeah, I'm sorry, there's basically no probability that you're going to get that job. And that's probably true for almost every company of size out there for every single one of us. But what company can we be at the start of, at the top of? And that's ours right here. We build two teams of business. Most people know that. But here's some things that I want you to know. This team can go to approaching infinity in numbers on both sides, and some massive leader can actually show up in depth. So what that means is you can start helping thousands or more people that you would never, ever, ever have known change their life, change their health, change their wealth. And that itself gives me an incredible bit of excitement. And by the way, the leaders can emerge anywhere within the structure on anybody's left or right, so they don't even have to be directly in line with you. But we literally have people in this company that have earned over $1 million just on the dual team without having a frontline leader. So what does that mean? You sponsor someone on the left and someone on the right, and somewhere within that organization comes a massive builder, and someone within that organization comes a massive builder. And with the money that you can earn, you basically, you know, get to collect and collect and collect on all new signups and first order, essentially to infinity. A couple caps to keep the company profitable, and that's really smart. But understand, it's been done. People have earned over $1 million on the dual team without a single frontline leader. Now, it's obviously not ideal. If you get a bunch of frontline leaders, look out. You're going to start making some really serious money. So this individual's name is Paul Stamets. And Paul Stamets gave a TED Talk which is entitled 6 Ways That Mushrooms Will Save the World. And pretty fascinating about that, he listed these 6 different ways. He said, number 1, the mushrooms actually clean our environment. They clean the ecosystem. They actually break down certain pollutants that nothing else can break down in our environment. They are phenomenal insecticides. And Paul Stamets tells the story of how using mushroom spores can actually almost create a permanent pest-proof house. Incredibly powerful. They're antiviral. You can look at medical studies. We don't want to make any claims, but there are medical studies that show that Ganoderma can block the replication of some super powerful viruses. I won't name any, right? But just Google Ganoderma antiviral. Or maybe I could even mention, right, Millionaire call. Studies show it can block replication. And I don't want to say our specific product does because that would be a health claim. Ganoderma can block replication of the HIV virus. It actually creates healthy soil. Now, it can break down rocks and convert it into soil. It is good for human nutrition. I think most of us know that. And the one that Paul Stamets missed was number 7, which is actually wealth. But nature itself is phenomenally cooperative. So I did a little Google search of pictures and said, you know, cooperation within nature. So I actually think that this bird is probably picking out parasites or something from this. It's probably a crocodile, but I can't say I know if it's a crocodile or an alligator. Look at the cooperation among these ants creating a bridge across to where they want to be. Look at cooperation. I have no idea why the elephant would choose to, you know, basically cool down, I'll call it, the zebras. I don't know for sure it's doing that, but how wonderful is that? And by the way, when we were on African safari, which we did as our first family organo trip, the guides told us that the animals watch the giraffes because the giraffes can see above and they can see predators in the distance, and they can let everybody else know, hey, listen, there's something over there to look out for. So incredible cooperation. We are primates, pretty fascinating there, and these primates are all working together to pick things off their back. You know, one of our team members, Dr. Paul Charlton, shout out to you, whenever he starts a meeting, he's just got such a good spirit and a good nature. He literally has everybody stand up. Okay, let's share a little kindness, give a little nice massage, and everybody turn around and do the same. And let's face it, I think everybody likes a nice massage or shoulder rub. So I tell people jokingly and not so jokingly that this book was referred to me by Bill Gates. And it was. But Bill Gates wrote an article about different books and his top 10, and his top book a few years ago was this book called Sapiens. And pretty fascinating history of humankind, but 115,000 years ago, there weren't just Homo sapiens. There was a number of different Homo erectus, Homo anthropurus, or whatever they were. You can look up about half a dozen. And the author says, just like there's bears, you know, we have grizzly bears, and we have polar bears, and we have panda bears, and we have black bears. There were that kind of variety of humans on the planet 115,000 years ago. But the reason that Homo sapiens dominated the planet was their incredible ability to cooperate and collaborate on a large scale. And by the way, the most common thing that people gathered around was a vision for a better future. So I certainly consider Martin Luther King one of my mentors, and he's one of the mentors that I didn't have the pleasure of meeting, obviously, because he gave his life for a cause he so strongly believed in many, many years ago. But his speech is considered by many the most powerful of all time. And you probably all know at least the start of his speech, I have a dream. And notice he didn't say, I have a plan, because the plan is irrelevant. You've got to have a vision of where you're going to get. And the plan is likely to change all the way. So do you have a dream of going diamond? You know, we have a framework. We have our 4 steps, and we have our 4 questions. But understand that framework must remain dynamic. You have to change, and that's one of the things we'll talk about, adaptability with the environment, with the person, with the time, and with the economy, how you apply it. And we're going to show how nature teaches us that, but very, very strong lesson from Homo sapiens in nature that cooperation wins. And so I like this graph of leadership. And what do leaders do? Well, they actually empower people. They inspire people. They lead the change, and they share that incredible vision. And ultimately, we want to take action towards that vision. So one of my favorites, I like my actual DX hot towards the evening. Calming, delicious, detoxifying. And I'll leave that pretty picture on there for a moment because I find it truly fascinating how adaptive or adaptable nature is. So Einstein said this: the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. I could throw in the word adapt, to change according to time. Now, we've had some time, and we've had some challenges, and we've had some changes that we need to roll with. And Teddy Roosevelt probably didn't cut too many corners or hold back too many punches. And I use this quote because I remember at age 20, I worked for General Motors and as an engineering intern. And we were assigned mentors. And one of my mentors was a pretty high up guy in General Motors. His name was Greg Rising. And at the time, he was 35 years old and ahead of so many things. And I sat down to have a conversation with him, and I said, you know, I find this fascinating. You are very, very young, but yet you've climbed to the top of this, or near top of this massive corporation. How in the world did you do that? And he said, Bob, I always have one piece of advice for people that come to me. You're always welcome in my door, but don't ever come in here with a complaint or a problem without offering a solution. And so Teddy Roosevelt said this. He said, complaining about a problem with proposing a solution is called whining. And you know what? That is not probably going to attract the people you want to lead to a higher level of life. So let's try to own this rule and always, always, always bring a solution. So Kelly and I, and I'll give her so much credit always for being such a point person, but we had a lot of people that we might say came with challenges without solutions. But if you're having a website challenge, hey, here's a simple one. Do a paper application. We have broken plenty of pins. We've had record volume. We actually had a record November, a record December, already a record January. And that's not bragging. There's so much of that due to our leaders that follow this philosophy. And by the way, when we get to nature and redundancy, you're going to find out that we had to talk to a lot of people, share a lot of samples, sponsor a lot of people to get some of those leaders. And did we build some of them? I'd like to think that we helped their path. But ultimately, I think leaders are built from within. They have that drive. They have that goal. They remain teachable, coachable, trainable. And the leader deserves the credit within themselves. But we certainly have said, okay, you know what, if you want to grow, let's grow together. And it's been such a fun journey. Harvey Mackay has been considered by many one of the greatest networkers on planet Earth. And he's got a company called Mackay Envelope. And I was at a seminar where he was a keynote speaker a few years ago. And he said the best piece of advice he was ever given happened to be by his father. And I think Harvey was maybe 18 years old at the time. He said, Harvey, go out and meet new people every single day and find creative ways. And I'll use the word adaptive because we're talking about adaptation here. Adaptive ways to stay connected. And there are people out there that will do that. Is a handwritten note today valuable? I might say more valuable than ever because so few people are doing it. Is a phone call with voice and message? Most of us are going to consider it annoying, but I'm in that category too if my phone randomly rings. But if someone sends me a text and says, I have something exciting to share, can we talk for a few minutes? You know, now I'm excited to receive their phone call. That's changing and adapting with the times and keeping in touch with people. Now, Harvey Mackay is an influencer. And this is from the book, The Go-Giver. I wish the graphic that I downloaded gave that title. The Go-Giver is a phenomenal book by Bob Berg. And maybe there's another author as well. In fact, I'm sure there is, but Berg gets most of the credit. And the law of influence is this. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. So, you know, when people are always saying, me, what can you do for me? And in time, you're going to go, okay, what am I going to do for you? I'm going to keep my distance from you. But if they come offering, if they come with a open heart, then people say, oh, hi, hey, happy, beautiful day. I am very excited to see you. You know, what's new in your world? And then every once in a while, there's another law. It's got to be a law of nature, the law of reciprocity, that if you probably call the law of sowing and reaping, if you do enough good for others, others are going to do enough good for you as well. So now let's look at the environment. And I love this picture. These are goldfish, and this fish is actually jumping into this bowl. And that represents the cover of a book that I recently listened to. What's it called? The Big Leap. And the author, Gay Hendricks, was talking about this thing called upper limits. And he says, we may not consciously be aware, but we all have an upper limit. Mr. Bugs called it our thermostat. And once we start growing above that or expanding above that, we get uncomfortable. So there's the phrase, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But this is a picture of a goldfish that has been placed in an environment where it actually has room to grow and thrive. And so these people are going to be these fish are going to fight for little crumbs. And this says, okay, I'm going to where I have room to grow. So if you look at a tree, that if you were to plant a tree in a pot, it's probably not going to get very big. But in nature, how big will it grow? As big as it can. So what about environment? So all these beautiful animals that I took the pictures of, and I love nature and I love the beauty of nature, are so wonderfully adapted to their environment. But the reality is that man actually adopts himself to that environment. So I really love the movie 300, and some of you were, around a few years ago where Organo decided that they were going to take the 300 people on the cruise, and they showed some of the video, and they had a wonderful rallying cry. We'll just call it that. But if you like this type of movie, and this is one of the movies that I've actually seen many, many times. I don't remember when it came out, but Jacob was fairly young, and it was about leadership, and it was about values, and it was about people that stood for something. And one of my great mentors said a long, long time ago, if you don't stand for something, you'll likely fall for anything. So I took Jacob to this movie, even though it was R-rated, and I screened it first, of course. And I just wanted him to see what can happen when people work together, when people stand for something. And in one of the scenes, the King Leonidas literally has to prove his manhood. Now, isn't that fascinating about nature and human cultures? Women naturally progress to adulthood and maturity and to complete their ultimate biologic purpose. But in many, many cultures, men have to pass a test, and it's not a very easy test. So maybe the test within Organo is going sapphire, because if you can go sapphire, there's so many beautiful things that you can do. But in Leonidas's test, the young king, maybe 13 years old, has to go out in the wild and slay an animal with essentially a spear, and it's cold, and he's barefoot, and maybe wearing a loincloth in the winter. And so this big, maybe it was a panther or something like that, was stalking him at night. And Leonidas had this idea, because there was a narrow passage where he knew he could get his small body through, but that this ferocious beast couldn't get through. And so as he ducks through this small passage, the beast takes a lunge at him, and he gets caught, and Leonidas doesn't have any challenge taking him out. Great movie. So why am I putting so much emphasis into this? So the Spartans, one of the most famous battles of all time, were able to hold off extensively an army of millions by using the environment to their advantage. This narrow passage where only a certain amount could get through, and 1-to-1 or 300 to 300, no one was going to be able to match forces with the Spartans. So Napoleon Hill, and again, one of absolutely Organo's greatest claims to fame is their partnership with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And Napoleon Hill said this, he said, man may become the master of himself and his environment because he has the power to influence his own subconscious mind and through it gain the cooperation of infinite intelligence. Infinite intelligence, what a fantastic word. So I'm going to get back to that for just a moment. And I'm going to go back to this big picture and the dark matter of the universe. This is the biggest picture of the universe we have. And it looks a lot like a human brain and the internet and the organo business model. But I should have saved this quote, always those should haves, right? Because I'm always reading quotes and someone said, what if the universe as we know it is just the equivalent of a single brain cell in a much larger being? Or maybe not just a single brain cell, but the brain of a much larger being. Well, what could that larger being be if we go to our buddy Napoleon Hill, one of the most tapped in people of all time? He says, maybe, infinite intelligence is there, and through the subconscious mind, through actually affirmations and visualization and thinking and growing rich, we can create that cooperation with infinite intelligence. Keep in mind that his project was to study the 500 richest people on planet Earth at that time, which he did. And this is what they said. How did we get so successful? We cooperated with infinite intelligence. If you're going to have a business partner, that's a pretty good one to have. So Lao Tzu, this book, The Art of War, is on a top 10 list of nearly every amazing leader that I've read a top 10 list about. But Lao Tzu says this, he who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. Another proverb in the Bible says basically those exact same words. So how are we going to master ourselves? Deepak Chopra is considered by many certainly a spiritual leader. Some of my masters say this, mastery is not like a diploma. It's actually something we earn and re-earn every single day. So it's not like you get a college degree and go, there it is, I'm a master. You literally have to earn that mastery every single day. And by the way, it makes me think of the Navy SEALs, where they have something called a trident, and they say you must earn your trident every single day. And Rory Vaden, in his book, Take the Stairs, says this. He says, success is not owned, it's rented. And the rent is due every day. So Deepak Chopra, always go with your passions. Never ask yourself if it's realistic or not. So what are you passionate about? Get in touch with that. And he has 4 steps to self-mastery. And the first of that is presence. And be here now. Now, how often can you be present? Well, strive for more and more and more, but what's the norm in our society? How about not present? How about distracted? And it's funny that I say that because I have this device here, a weapon of mass destruction, or mass distraction, maybe both, right? If it's distracting, it's destructive. Because I use it as my timekeeper, and I have it on Do Not Disturb and silent, but nonetheless, it buzzed a couple times, and I thought, I wonder if something really important that I have to deal with is coming through, but I'm using it as a timer here and now. But be present. So while I have this here, if we were having a conversation in person, the iPhone effect is something pretty fascinating. Studies of complete strangers, they'll have a conversation and they'll have both of them rate the conversation, and they'll give it a certain rating. Well, if people are talking and there's no phone present, the conversation is rated much higher engagement, much higher connection. The phone doesn't even have to belong to either participant. If a phone is present, then guess what? It is distracting. So maybe use that as one. Be present with your clients. Put the phones away. If you can find a way to get them to put theirs away for 5 minutes, be creative, roll with the changes. You might just say, I have a personal rule based on a study I heard about, and that is if one of these phones is present, the quality of our interaction is going to go down. I'd love to maximize our time together. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to be present. Can we agree to put our phones away for just 5 minutes? If you want, we can set a timer. And by the way, hopefully if you have a 5-minute timer on that, you will be more likely to find your way to be efficient. So be here now. Now, life is a series of choices. So Deepak Chopra's second step to self-mastery is to choose wisely. Now, Michelangelo's David is considered the most famous sculptor on planet Earth. I guess that's an opinion. The most valuable sculptor on planet Earth. And understand, pretty fascinating, that what does this sculptor actually represent? It's not after he slayed Goliath. It's not as he was getting his stone ready and ready to toss. It was his moment of decision. Now, this massive piece of marble was rejected by many people that were actually called masters. Michelangelo was only 26 years old when he was commissioned for that project, and he spent 2 years, day and night, making it. Now, whether it was a story that someone actually interviewed Michelangelo or hearsay, but here's how the story goes. They said, how in the world did you create David from that? And he said, I just simply chiseled away everything that wasn't David. And so that metaphor has been used on our diamond journey. So how are you going to become a diamond? You got to chisel away everything that is not diamond-like within you. And let's go with that again. Organo is awesome at requalification. And so is being a diamond like a college degree. I guess maybe in title, but how about in actuality? Do you have a diamond business? Are you functioning like a diamond all the time? And I'm going to encourage every one of us, whatever your pin level is, whatever you were doing that got you there, get back to that. Adapt, roll with the changes, plug in, be consistent. Let's get there again, and new pins are broken all the time. So number 3 in Deepak Chopra's 4 to self-mastery is action. Love this quote by Einstein. Nothing happens until something moves. That's pretty powerful, right? So sitting back and hoping it's going to happen, not really there. So I was at a conference, personal development conference, networking conference in December, and they had a speaker on stage who was young and successful. And he was talking about personal development. And he talked about, personal development and action must be coupled. And he said, you can use your right foot as personal development and your left foot for action. So I'll actually stand up for the purpose of this metaphor. And here's what he said. He says, right foot forward. If I can put my camera on it, maybe I can't, but right foot forward, personal development, left foot action, right foot forward, left foot action, right foot forward, left foot action. You see, you actually go someplace. But then he said, what do most people do? Right foot forward, personal development, 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 right foot forward, personal development. You get the story, right? What about left foot? Action, 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 action. And if you don't couple the two, you don't go anywhere. So personal development, action, personal development, action, personal development, action, personal development, action. And that's a really good formula for success. Number 4, per Deepak Chopra, is love and alignment, both. And you know what? The greatest of these is love. The Beatles said it. All you need is love. That's kind of true, right? Well, what if you just sit there and love yourself, but don't nourish yourself and don't move around? It's pretty hard to contribute to the world in that way. So in the middle, I have this Zen proverb, which is chop wood, carry water. And it's pretty fascinating that up until very, very recently, I didn't understand this at all. It said before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Well, what's the difference? Well, before enlightenment, you might, be begrudging about the process. And what about after enlightenment? Well, you do it freely, gladly, enthusiastically, generously, willingly, with good grace. Are you doing the same action? Yeah. Are you doing it in the same way? Not at all. So how you do it absolutely counts. So one of the disciplines or growth strategies we have on our team is a monthly book. And this month's book is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And I really, really, really recommend that book. But Jeff Olson starts his book telling the story he originally introduces them as twins. And, one twin was actually a beach bum and horribly unsuccessful and unsatisfied. And the other actually, was a top graduate from a top university and then rose within the corporate ladder and then actually made a fortune in network marketing, which is pretty fascinating, right? That's probably why it's a good network marketing book. But he says, oh, by the way, these weren't twins, they were each me. When I didn't have the slight edge, which was really recognizing that everything counts and do everything with passion and purpose and good attitude and knowing that doing things good is its own reward. But if you do everything that way, how you do anything is how you do everything. You move forward in life. And that was his slight edge that made him millions. And so we'll say the slight edge, you might call it a major edge, is actually enlightenment. So the next strategy we're going to come through is the seasons and cycles of life. And probably the best story that I've heard about that is Jim Rohn. And he likes to talk about winter, spring, summer, fall. Winter, spring, summer, fall. How long has it been that way? Since the beginning of recorded history. How long will it be there? You know what? It'll be that way as long as we're around, I guarantee you. Now he says some winters are longer and harder than others. And he says you have social winters, you have spiritual winters, you have economic winters. But what comes after winter? Spring. And what is spring? It's new opportunity. But what happens when summer comes? Well, you know what? Here's the simple thing. He says, this is a law. All good will be attacked. I don't think I like that law, but it almost seems that it's true. He says, if you don't pay attention, the weeds take the garden. And then ultimately what happens in the fall? Well, you get your harvest. And Jim Rohn says the ultimate in maturity is accepting your harvest without apology or complaining or whining. So when we start looking at the law of the harvest, the law of sowing and reaping, we literally want to sow every single day. And then guess what? We have to prepare the soil. We have to plant the seed. We have to protect the seed. And then ultimately we get our production. As we're preparing the soil, this is backbreaking work with no reward. Is we're planting the seeds. This is backbreaking work with no reward. As we're protecting, this is backbreaking work with no reward. And then there's the harvest, which is the reward. I really like this metaphor in this story, but it's been said that most people think they go from plant to harvest, plant to harvest. It doesn't work that way in nature. It doesn't work that way in life. It doesn't work that way, certainly in this business. So what are the phases in network marketing? Probably when most people get started, there's initial excitement. That's why they start. They've heard the stories. And Jim Rohn says, tell your story, learn to tell your story and get people to go, you know what, if he can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. So you have your initial excitement. But somewhere along the line, there's going to be some challenge. There's going to be some disappointment. And guess what? It usually doesn't take very long. So sometimes some of the experts say, well, maybe you just want to prepare everybody, saying, you know what, don't go running around like a fool telling everybody, let's build a little base first, like Organo says, you know. Often they say, get your 10 customers the first month just by sharing the excitement in the product. People get really excited about the product. That's pretty easy to do. The business model, we have to get them to understand that it's the model of nature, the model of universe, the model of success. But once you get going, there's going to be some disappointment and challenges. And by the way, you probably want some of that. One of my great friends, Pete Cohen, Emerald, phenomenal guy, launched a great big team in South Africa, really supporting people there. Pete's an author, and first time I heard him speak, pretty amazing. But he said, how many of you like golf? And enough people in the room, raised their hand. He says, well, what if you went out and no matter what you did, you hit the ball and it went in the hole, So you just stand there. I don't care what club you use. You just go and boom, it goes in the hole. 500-yard hole, goes in the hole. You turn around backwards. You hit with your opposite hand. You use a putter off the tee box. It goes in the hole, one stroke. How many of you would even want to even play the first round? That would be ridiculous. It wouldn't be fun. So we want challenge. And we'll talk in a little bit how much challenge we want. But enough to help us grow, but not so much that we break under the pressure. And I like this graph because here's the critical point. It says people are going to quit. And sometimes people just go, why would they do that? And, I remember Emmanuel Bernstein, one of the very first meetings I went to, he says, look, that's what people do. People quit jobs, people quit relationships, people quit workout programs, people quit diets, people quit marriages. So if they're going to go and they're going to make a promise before God and everybody, they're going to stick this out. And in a marriage, you think that's a pretty significant commitment. And then they just quit? Yeah, probably not, right? And by the way, that's why we probably, want to get people to really understand the process, not just get them in on excitement, but say, hey, there's going to be ups and downs, there are going to be pros and cons, but let me tell you, I'm not just selling you the business. In fact, Darren Hardy, one of my favorite mentors today, he says people need to understand what they're selling. And by the way, the first thing that you're selling is you. We're selling a partnership. So if you're going to bring someone, sponsor them into the business. Remember, the word sponsor has something to do like the word responsible. If you're going to sponsor someone, to some degree, you are responsible. Now, to what degree? Well, Jim Rohn says, you know what, you give a little, I'll give a little. You give a little, I'll give a little. You give nothing, I'll give nothing. Okay, so how responsible are they? Well, let's bring them in. Let's start moving them forward. Let's at least have a conversation. Let's get them some direction, and then give them a little bit of an assignment. Here you go, make your list, and let's see how that goes. But critical point, a lot of people quit, but notice this. It says you fight for your success. I was at a conference where John Maxwell was speaking, and he says, you know what? Everything you want is uphill. You've got to actually put in some effort. And then where's the final phase, or phase 3? Financial freedom. And we'll talk about the numbers of how you get there. While we're on seasons and cycles, on off is one of the easiest cycles ever. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. So Mr. Bugs was at a Super Saturday. Love learning from him, and I do so every time I get a chance. But he says, you know what? In my hardest years of network marketing, I was always on. And always on burns you out. And it may well burn out the people around you. So take some time off. So when the Packers won the Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys, I took my son Jacob, and my brother-in-laws were there. We're from Wisconsin. We're big Packer fans. And there we were in the stands. But the night before, we went to a nice restaurant, and there was Aaron Rodgers with his family. And someone was actually stopped Aaron Rodgers in the restaurant and said, oh my God, Aaron, I'm so excited. Can I get your autograph? And Aaron Rodgers so diplomatically looked at me and says, you know what, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for autographs. And this is neither the time nor the place. So thank you for supporting me and our team. We're going to do all we can to win and bring a championship for you and the other fans tomorrow. But tonight I'm going to enjoy my family. And that was said so well. So how does this apply to everybody we meet? There's going to be a time and a place to prospect them. There's going to be a time and a place to even share the product. And it's not everybody you meet every moment. Some people call it the 3-foot rule. I think most people that are in the 3-foot rule are giving away a lot of product and making a lot of enemies. The time and place is after you've created rapport, after you've established some reason for them to at least trust you to try a sample. And with Organo's packaging, it's pretty easy to get that trust because they put so much into creating a great product that looks so good. So Flow is next. So this author, what a great name, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, great name, right? Wrote the book Flow, and he studied it, and he said, flow is essential to happiness. And what is that zone of flow? It's not moving backwards. It's getting 4% better, not getting in over your head. So I don't know if any of you have ever had a sporting competition or some competition, right? But when you're in over your head, or maybe I'll use an example. I remember the first time I went skiing in Colorado. Big shout out to the Nielsen's. Love you. Beautiful family. Do so much to make the world better. But downhill skiing, and one of my patients gave me good advice. They said, Bob, you're going to want to take a lesson. So I took a lesson, and first day, I didn't fall even once. And I've got reasonable balance, and you know, thank God for all of our blessings and gifts, and I have reasonable balance, and I developed it to a certain degree. And so these guys who I'm not friends with anymore said, okay, you're ready to go with us. And they took me up to the top of a black. And once I got off the ski lift, I was frightened out of my mind. Literally, it was almost vertical. It had moguls. It was narrow. It had trees. I started pointing my skis downhill, got out of control fast, wiped out, took a hard fall, took off my skis and walked down the black. That was not a good circumstance to be in. So don't get over and above where you're ready at this point. And let me tell you about the beauty of this business. Whoever you're trying to connect with, create rapport and then reach up and then reach up and then reach up and then reach up, because we have people in this company that are the best in the world at networking. They can answer the questions. They can help you move forward, so you're not going to get too far beyond that 4%. So can you sponsor a superstar? Yeah, you can. But the most sure way to do it is by using people that have done it before you, where people, that's within their comfort zone. So what about flow? There's the quote from my wonderful friend, Dr. Sachin Patel: consistency carves canyons. So the Colorado River cut through the rock formations and created this. It did it with consistency. So consistency, Einstein talks about compound interest. And I use this on another Millionaire mentorship call, but this is indisputable math. So we have this penny that we're gifted day one of the month. And literally, let's say we're given a choice and say, you know what, I'll give you a penny today, and you can double it every day for a month, or I'll give you $1 million right now. Well, even if it's February, you're still better off doubling that penny, because notice day one, you go from a penny to 2 pennies to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 cents. You know, at the end of 10 days, you got $5.12. But keep following the math. At the end of 20 days, $5,200. At the end of 30 days, $5.3 million. And what if there's 31 days? Over $10 million. And if we look at that graph of doubling the penny, you're going to see that it doesn't look like much is going on the first 23, 24, 25 days. But then look at the final. And that's a great metaphor for network marketing. Jerry Seinfeld wrote a joke every single day. It was his commitment. He would write a joke and he put a red X on the calendar. And he actually earned many, many millions in the skills that he created writing jokes. So I like this book by a guy named Dan Millman. It's called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And when we start talking about going with the flow, he really expands on this little nursery rhyme, row, row, row your boat. So let's break it down. Row, row, row. That implies action. You've got to do action, not just once, not just twice, but you got to keep doing action. Your boat, whose action are you taking? Whose life are you building? Whose dream are you building? It's yours. That's really all you can do. Now, notice what he says, gently. So if you're pushing so hard, you might, beyond that 4%, injure yourself. You know, there's things that can happen. Downstream, you want to go with the flow. Now, I know that slightly alters what John Maxwell said. He says you got to put in effort to get where you want to go. And so this doesn't defy the effort component. You're going to do the effort, but if you're going with the flow, if you're with that 4% improvement, we're going to call that downstream. Notice merrily, 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 merrily. I think there's 4. I don't want to sing you the song because that might ruin the call. But notice, that's a very, very powerful point. Row, row, row your boat. Merrily, 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 merrily. All right, that's 4 of them, right? The most number one thing that he's really emphasizing in this simple nursery rhyme is be happy about how you do it. That's the enlightened state. And life is but a dream. Remember Martin Luther King? I have a dream. He didn't say I have a plan. I have a dream. So number 6 is going to be actually abundance and success. And I'm looking at my time. I'm running low. But every female born that has fertility is born with 1 million eggs at time of birth. So why does a female have 1 million eggs? Because most of them aren't going to make it. When we look at our sunshine, if we could learn to capture the energy that's available to us every single day, the sun every day produces 10,000x the energy that planet Earth needs. And then Stephen Covey says results matter. They're certainly very, very, very important. So Euripides said this in 440 BC, judge a tree from its fruit, not its leaves. I know it's biblical. Believe it or not, I have a mindset that all truth is timeless and all truth comes from the same source. So I try to find the original source and we can trace it back to that infinite intelligence. But a long time ago, judge a tree by its fruit, not by its leaves. When we look at these trees, by the way, which tree do you think would be built to last? The one with a single stem going down? Probably not in this business either. Something that's wide but not deep. People can do it, but if they don't support their people to grow, they're in trouble. It's the wide and deep group that's going to absolutely make it, and that increases our profitability. So as Mr. Bugg says, the wider you are, the closer the money is to you. So when we start talking about this magic 10,000 customers, so imagine you sponsor 10 people who sponsor each 10 who sponsor 10. You got 1,000 people. If everybody gets their 10 customers, 10,000 customers at a certain amount per month. But ultimately, if you're wide, and our team is pretty wide and it's also pretty deep, our earnings have been 8% of the total money that's gone through our organization, Organo. So that's real. But if you had 10,000 customers, each purchasing $100 a month at 8%, you're going to make $80,000 a month or be $1 million earner. If you're narrow with 10,000 customers, you're still going to make some pretty good money. So how am I going to wrap this up? Our universe, our nature is intelligently designed. Everything's connected and cooperative. Adaptation wins. Create the environment of success. Realize that there's going to be seasons and cycles. Understand the power of flow and certainly the power of consistency, which carves canyons. Nature has abundance. Results matter. And you want to be built to last. I'd love to see every single one of you at UTX. Let's all catch the momentum together and build the life of our dreams. I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful. Good night, and God bless.